Here we go. It's finally game day. Game one of the Stanley Cup Final goes tonight right here in Edmonton. Welcome into another playoff edition of Daily Faceoff Live. As always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app. Use the code NATION. Whatever the moment, whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler Yaremchuk, Frank Saravalli with you, live in the flesh again in my usual ONE studio. Frank, the little Airbnb. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I am very, very good. The sun is shining today in Edmonton.
Still a little chilly. For our friends in the U.S., it's 57 degrees Fahrenheit today here in Edmonton, but warming up, getting close to 70.
And again, Pat Puff behind the scenes, already getting compliments. Dan Gauthier, the audio's clean off the rip. Look at us go.
Let's go.
No crawling into a game day here for us. We are 8 hours, just over 8 hours away from puck drop between the Oilers and Panthers. We do have a little bit of breaking news we're going to get to later on in the show. Brock Nelson's got an extension in Colorado, and Nikita Kucherov has captured the Ted Lindsay Award, Frank. But let's start with game one. You were down at Rogers Place yesterday for Media Day, and I was on this morning with Colby Cohn and Johnny Lazarus, Morning Cup of Hockey, and they asked me, they're like, man, how much is revenge fueling the Oilers this year? And I'll be honest, from hearing what I did at Media Day, I don't think it's revenge that the Oilers are after. I just think they want to prove to everyone that they can get the job done. Like, I don't think there's any sort of hatred towards the Panthers.
No, I would agree with you, and there's obviously no rivalry or anything like that, and I wouldn't expect a carryover. But what I will say is I think a little bit of what the Oilers are feeling right now, and you could tell, I think you get a good vibe from teams. The Oilers are confident, but I do get the sense that, to your point, they're facing a little bit of pressure. Remember, the Panthers were in this spot last year, got to the Cup final the previous year, lost. Paul Maurice was talking to open Cup final Media Day. I just want to win one of these things one damn time. And they go and do it, and now they come into this series like, hey, we're the big dogs here. We're the team that won. We're the team that you have to beat. I think the Oilers are feeling a little bit of, hey, we've had some close calls. We've got the very best players in the world. This is our year. This is our time to break through.
Yeah, and again, you're right. I think there is not even weirdly, there's more pressure on the Edmonton Oilers.
For sure.
I think, because if you're Florida and you lose this one, everyone still looks and goes, man, 3 straight runs to the Cup. You eventually ran out of gas. Maybe you lost to Connor McDavid. Sure. If you're the Oilers and you lose in back-to-back Cup finals, all of a sudden now it's the questions of, do they have enough, and all of that. And narratives that I don't think would be necessarily true, but the conversations would be happening is my point. And that would be the noise that follows them for the next 12 months.
Well, look, let's face it. There's still flat earthers out there who think that Connor McDavid is somehow going to sign somewhere else like the Toronto Maple Leafs when his contract's up in a year from now. I mean, some things you can't fix, right? Mm-hmm. And narratives and what happens after the fact, you can't. But for the Oilers, they have the ability to write a new narrative. Yeah. And that part, I think, is incredibly enticing to them.
Yeah, and a lot of the conversation, I think, and it's understandable, and I don't think it's me being a homer or whatever, a lot of the conversation is focused on the Edmonton Oilers right now, and that leads to people going, whoa, why are we disrespecting the Florida Panthers? But I don't even think that's the case. I think everybody knows the Florida Panthers are a really good team. They're the defending champs. It's their crown. When the Stanley Cup is sitting at center ice tonight before game one, there's a bunch of Florida Panthers names on it from last year. I don't get the sense that there's any disrespect coming to the Florida Panthers. Are you picking up on any of that?
Not at all. I don't mean...
And especially from the media, the fans, you can say whatever you want about them, but
that's not how the team is looking at it, for
there you
sure.
Go. Yeah.
And we kind of had that conversation yesterday, both at Media Day and then behind the scenes after the fact. There is a ton of respect for the Panthers. I think everyone universally thinks that this is a really good team, that this is going to be a heavyweight bout. This is a titanic matchup. This is an NBA Finals. Hey, we've got the 2 best teams in the world colliding, that everyone agrees are the 2 best teams, by the way. And we don't normally get matchups like this. Yeah. We usually get hey, one team went on an incredibly hot run, or this team was the upset special Cinderella. It's never really these 2 Titans get to the finish line. They never normally make it here, and that part, I think, makes this a really juicy series.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny the way leagues go in different cycles. But like, remember during the LeBron Curry years, that's when the NHL felt like it had a whole bunch of different teams going to the finals. And you're right, there were 8 seeds.
Nashville, San Jose,
the Blues.
yeah, right.
And now it's the reverse, where in the NHL it's 3 straight Eastern Conference championships for the Panthers, back to back for the Oilers. And you look in the NBA, it's like 2 mid-market, middle of the United States teams here who just happen to stumble their way to the end.
But that's a jumping off point in my view for the NHL. Like everyone, look, if you're watching our show, we don't need to preach to the converted, but if you're out there and you're a casual hockey fan who lives in not one of these markets, like this should be appointment viewing because of the star power, because of the quality of these teams, because of the physicality. And I actually really have enjoyed the arc of this year's Stanley Cup playoffs.
Absolutely.
The first round was electric. And then the second round, I was like, And the third round was brutal.
Awful.
But that's the NBA. It's like this. It's like a slow burn. And then you get to the final, and it's usually awesome. They don't have a first round like the NHL does. No. And this part, if you can go like this and then this, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of, again, you talk about the casual viewers, it's the defending champs and Bob and Tkachuk. And then on the Edmonton side, it's, Connor McDavid, the face of the league. Like, there's so many reasons to tune into this. But it ultimately, it'll be decided by those guys, but there's an undercurrent of players here too. These are 2 really, really good teams. The Oilers didn't just get here on the back of 97. Nope. The Panthers didn't just get here on the back of Bob or Barkov. And that's a great segue, Frank, into our Under the Radar segment for today. I know, hey, what a broadcaster. I'm in the zone today. But let's each identify on either side of this one under the radar player who could stand out, who could have a lot to say in how this series plays out. We'll start with Florida.
Okay, I was actually going to start with Edmonton. I'm going, all right, I'm going to, because there's just a tad little bit of news here. I think we've all been expecting it, but my under-the-radar guy is Connor Brown.
All right.
He's expected to be in the Game 1 lineup. He's been dealing with an illness of late as well. And he's someone that when you look at his goal total so far from these playoffs, he's only 1 back of McDavid, and he's tied with like Nugent Hopkins and a bunch of other top-end Edmonton Oilers that make way more money, that have gotten way more attention. Evander Kane he's tied with as well. He's been a really quiet, this is the perfect under-the-radar type guy that has contributed. I mean, it feels like he has more goals on this playoff run than he did the entirety of last regular season, which might actually be true. But nonetheless, that's the type of guy that you look for. Hey, how can we find a way to continue that production? How can we get just a little bit more out of this lineup? That would be one guy that I would look at. Who's your guy for the Oilers?
For the Oilers, and Pat, I'll do this in a weird way. If you can show the Florida Panthers forward lines here, because the what I'm trying to illustrate is, listen, Barkov is going to get the assignment of Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Then there's the Bennett line, and then there's that very heavily talked about third line in Florida with Lundell, Marchand, and Luostarinen. Okay, one of those guys are getting McDavid or Draisaitl. Barkov's getting the other one. But then there's this other line, which is going to get the matchup of, in all likelihood, Adam Henrique, Connor Brown, and whoever happens to be on the other wing. And that's why Adam Henrique, I think, is so important for me. 35 years old. He's kind of had some spits, and he's had some good runs in these playoffs. He's had some moments where you kind of raise an eyebrow, and we've talked about, is he the odd man out at some point? But he's at 4 goals. That's great. His defensive conscience, though, is what's really been shining through in Edmonton. He maybe didn't have to do that in Anaheim when he was playing left wing, playing top power play unit. But if Adam Henrique can be a good, call it great, defensive third-line center for the Oilers and just saw off whatever matchup he gets into, I think that's so important for the Oilers. If they're not getting caved when Connor and Leon aren't on the ice, I think they will win this series, and Adam Henrique will be a big reason why they don't get caved if it plays out that way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he could certainly be a pivotal player. If he has a great series, then they're going to be in a really good position to win, and if not, they could be in tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Henrique and Brown big on the penalty kill. We'll get to John Goyens in a little bit and talk more in depth on that, Frank. For the Florida Panthers, I'll go first. I went with Niko Mikkola. Looking at some of his numbers, I mean,
he was like Bobby Orr to start these playoffs.
It was unbelievable. And they lost OEL. They lost Montour. Yes, they brought in Seth Jones. But you can still kind of look at this blue line and be like, oh, is it as strong as last year? He's a big reason why I think it's as strong as last year. When he's been on the ice at 5-on-5 in these playoffs, 265 minutes, the Panthers have won 15-8 in that stretch. And his most common forward opponent on each of the teams they've played, Kucherov, then Marner, then Aho. He goes toe-to-toe with the best lines, the top lines on the other teams, and Florida's outscored them 15-8. They're going to need Mikkola to be big. Again, Barkov and, the top pairing with Ekblad, they can take one of the McDavid-Draisaitl half. If Mikkola can give you really steady minutes against the other dynamic duo partner in Edmonton, then they're going to be in a good spot.
They will be, and it was really interesting to hear Bill Zito talk yesterday about their team and the way that it's structured with their defense, because you look at Mikkola, and I think back to his previous stops in New York or St. Louis or wherever he's been, and there's been an amazing thing about this team where they have defensemen that come in and get better. Mm-hmm. Nico Mikkola has gotten way better, and that's been a trend for them, over this last run where Gustav Forsling comes in, waiver guy, becomes an all-world type player and contributor. And he gave a lot of the credit to that. They call him Sly, but Sylvain Lefebvre, he's been such a huge part of their team, and really getting those defensemen to be in a spot where he can make an impact like that, and Mikkola can be an under-the-radar player. But for me, I'm going with Anton Lundell, and it was a toss-up for me between Lundell and Luosterainen, because those two L's have produced a ton of W's for the Florida Panthers in this run. And that line, Lundell, Luosterainen, and Brad Marchand, they have crushed opponents at 5-on-5. They've outscored them 10-2 so far these playoffs. We talked about Henrique and the defensive responsibilities. For this team, they play defense, they can get on the offense and create, and it all starts with their big brain center that can really help make a lot of things happen. So he plays pretty sizable minutes for a guy in a third line role and impacts so many different areas of the ice, but also produces. Like, he's got 5 goals, and we just talked about Brown and where he ranks in their team scoring. Lundell's pretty far up the list in terms of goals for the Panthers.
Again, it's a Florida team that can almost just roll those top 3 lines without even thinking twice. It's part of the reason why you can look at their 4th line on paper and be like, ooh, that maybe leaves you wanting a little bit more. But when you have the top 3 lines that are that good and can all handle 15 to 18 minutes a night, you don't really need a 4th line that's doing much more than giving you a few energy shifts every period. So, yeah, that 3rd line for Florida is going to be, it's a massive advantage for them in this matchup, and we'll see if how it plays out in Game 1 with Edmonton obviously having last change. Let's step away from the Stanley Cup final here for a second and get to some breaking news from this morning. It's an extension for Brock Nelson in Colorado. 3 years, $7.5 million, Frank, for a player who will turn 34 in October. Wasn't the most seamless fit in Colorado, but what do you make of them extending either way?
Yeah, well, I think that was maybe a little bit of the surprise here, was that for a guy that really wasn't very impactful, that they wanted to, or were so aggressive in getting a deal done. 3 times 7.5 is a pretty significant commitment for a guy who's 34. And so, look, he's got the size. He definitely has the range to his game where he can be a positive impact contributor, even if he's not scoring. Like, I think of Four Nations face-off, and he gave the U.S. some really valuable minutes. But I thought that his regular season arrival and playoff run really hurt his marketability in this year's free agent class. And so for Colorado to step up and get a deal done at that number, I could see why for him there was a reason why to forego free agency. And obviously you're going to have a chance to win. It's just that maybe knowing that he's going to be there will help unlock what Brock Nelson's full potential is, because we didn't see that in Colorado.
Talked about that today, actually. He said, I was with one organization my whole career. I wasn't sure what to expect when I get to Denver, but he wants to get familiar in that environment. For the Avs, they now have just $1.2 million in cap space with 12 forwards, 5 D-men, and 2 goalies under contract. $1.2 million to basically sign 2 players. Can't happen. So something's going to have to give there for Chris McFarland.
Okay, I'll give you some ideas.
Okay.
Sam Girard is a guy that they're talking about potentially moving on the back end.
Okay.
I think they've talked about Charlie Coyle so far. Another guy who I don't know if he fit in all that well. And then what do you do with Marty Necas? Are you paying him? And if you're not, you're in the same spot that Carolina was previously, and that's going to be very expensive. So any one of those 3 guys could be moved to create some salary cap flexibility.
All right, the Avs are up next week in our offseason previews. We'll have more on that. Then Nikita Kucherov has captured his second career Ted Lindsay Award, voted on by his peers. An incredible season here. He's now the 12th player to win this award twice, 84 assists. He was well over 100 points. Another great year from Kucherov. What do you make of him winning the Lindsay?
I think it was really well-deserved. I think he's been such a driving force for this team, and I don't know that they get to where they want to get to. Obviously, losing in the first round was disappointing, and Kucherov did not have a great series, was not very impactful. But I don't know that they get to this point being a perennial team that's in the mix without Nikita Kucherov driving the bus. And let's take a quick look at the video where they surprised Nikita Kucherov here, because this is the way they've been revealing some NHL awards this year, and it's been fun to watch.
It's been a work in progress for the last week, trying to get all the guys out here for the Ted Lindsay Award. Plan was to obviously surprise him when he got off the ice, but then he didn't skate today, so we had to really rally the troops, and we put him in the sauna for 25 minutes and cold tub, and tried to prolong so everyone could make it in time.
I know when we met at the end of the season, I told you for the year-end awards that they were flying the winners to LA or something like that. They're giving you the option now. You can go to LA. I will fly you, Anastasia, the kids, whatever you want. And if you want, they can fly the trophy here and just do something locally. So whatever you prefer.
What trophy?
Well, if you win one, like yeah.
Oh, which is
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. Yeah.
which is not. It's a long flight. I don't want.
Tampa's already a good spot for a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. All right. Everything else good?
Yeah.
All right. Good.
Bye.
All right. Take care, Coach. Yeah. See you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling to see how surprised it was.
On behalf of you guys, it's a lot for you, and without you guys, I wouldn't have done this. So, thanks a lot to all of you, and the rest of the guys. It really means a lot to me.
I'll echo what you said. I like the way the NHL's kind of doing it, making it about the teammates and giving it maybe more of a intimate feeling.
Yeah, well, some of the NHL award shows have been pretty painful over the last few years. Players just are not willing participants. They don't like being the butt of the jokes.
No.
We are going to have an NHL award show on June 12th. It's just going to be Hart and Vezina. And I think you look at that and you go, okay, but this is a different way to do it. And I think it's just way more digestible, too. It's short, it's easy, and the players, there's some emotional ones upcoming, I'm told. So well-deserved for Nikita Kucherov. This is such an honor to be voted that by your peers. And I think a really interesting foreshadowing, like what kind of impact does this have on the Hart Trophy? Obviously, the votes have already been sent in. I voted for Nikita Kucherov last year to win the Hart because I thought he was just that much better than everyone else. And this time around, I think it's going to be a little bit different. But, man, the fact that the players see Kucherov as the most outstanding player should hold some serious weight.
Absolutely. All right, let's move along and get to our big segment. It's the coach's room to continue our preview of the Cup final, and it's a presentation of Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for the playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every win is better enjoyed with your bud. So phone a bud, text a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. After all, the playoffs are the most wonderful time of the year, so make them count with Budweiser, who also has some special stuff going on with the City of Champions brew in Edmonton as well. As you can see behind on Frank and I set, the iconic Budweiser word mark replaced with Edmonton. They teamed up with Mark Messier for that bad boy, so you can find those exclusively in Edmonton as we get to the coach's room with John Goyens. Always a pleasure to welcome John Goyens to the show, former QMJHL head coach. And John, let's start with the Oilers penalty kill because the numbers are eye-popping for all the wrong reasons if you're an Oilers fan. Last year, the PK was so good, outscoring the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final. This year, it's 66%. Can the Panthers take advantage of that?
Well, they can. They can because they score in different ways. They're not always necessarily in a set PK stance, if you will, or a certain formation. And Edmonton's going to have to figure this out because it did get better as the series went along against Edmonton, right? When you look at it, it was really the first game where they scored a couple goals. And then as the series went on, it got better and better. But you cannot be going into a final with a 66% PK and think that that's good enough. Nobody thinks that is good enough. And it is a far cry from where they were last year. But you're going into the Cup final. Throw out all the existing numbers and focus on just the Florida Panthers. And we'll see how that shapes up. But there are areas of their PK and areas of Florida's power play that could either really expose the way Edmonton PKs here. So let's fire up some of these clips, and we're going to see how Edmonton has a tendency of really collapsing without being aggressive. And then what happens is they bring everybody down, and it really opens up shot lanes, and it creates chaos and desperation on shot blocks. So again, they collapse against Dallas, and it opens up a lot of low to highs, which we're going to see later on with Florida. They love to walk the blue line or dish to flanks, who then climb underneath that F1 like Robertson did right there. So again, there's a collapse PK. You're going to get it to the bumper, weak side, and then you need a savior because Skinner looks real small. It's an elite shot, but how does the big man look smaller than Saros in the net on that shot? And again here, make them travel and then get them running around a little bit, and then all kinds of stuff opens up, and you got guys like a Kulak having to pseudo dive on the ice to try to take away that passing lane. But as we fire up these Florida clips, you'll see if Edmonton starts chasing, and that what we call that F1, the window washer wiper that goes all the way across, if he's traveling too much and then going into a collapse PK, Florida will open up a power play that is on the brink of becoming a juggernaut here in the Cup final. So let's fire up the way Florida has scored on the power play. So they get into all kinds of different formations. They love to walk that blue line and climb. In fact, you got Ekblad down low right now, and here comes Ekblad through the flank, and now he's going to climb over that top of the circle, and they get bodies to the net, and they're great at deflecting pucks. Again, you're not looking at a 1-3-1. It looks like an overload. Walk that line, bring that F1 over. Now they have three PK guys on the same side of the ice, and you actually create a lane to sift it through, get that deflection. So here, Carolina's going to collapse, very similar to what we saw with Edmonton. If the F1 just leaves for a split second, the hands of a Varhagian type can make you pay. And again, you just get them. The Florida climbs up top. They walk the lines. Here it's Bennett this time, walks the line, and you're stacking screens, and the goalies are having a tough time seeing the traffic. And unbroken plays, hell of a play by Tkachuk. He pre-scans before he gets the puck, and he zips it to the back door. And when in doubt, put it in Barkov's hands because he could score from range.
Yeah, he can. And that's certainly going to be a really interesting part of this series, John. But I wanted to focus on, from a defensive standpoint for the Florida Panthers, you're looking to try and slow down and quiet this vaunted Edmonton attack that kind of presents Florida with something that they really haven't seen to this point in the playoffs. Who can be that difference maker for the Panthers?
B.O.B., Big Bob. I really think that as the series playoffs have gone on, and yes, everybody knows the storylines with Skinner. It's been either he gets torched or he pitches a shutout. Now, will that rear its ugly head here in the Cup final? We don't know. Nobody knows. And 1 week or 2 weeks doesn't necessarily make a career, but what we've seen with Bobrovsky is just a steady increase in really good play, in plays where he becomes bigger in the net. He comes out of his crease. He's pre-scanning on pucks. There's no surprises. Great with his blocker, tracking all kinds of rebounds and tracking through traffic. So as we fire it up, I think that this guy could be the defensive star in this series for the Florida Panthers. So we look, there's crowds. He's looking. He knows that tip is coming. No surprise. Like, he's ready for it. Florida does a great job of boxing out as well. Here, set face off through the crowd, even a little bit of a trickler rebound, not phased by traffic at all. In fact, sometimes he looks like he embraces a bit of that contact. There's a bit of a turnover here. Again, deflection. Where is he? He's out. Anyone that plays baseball, if you attack bounces, they don't eat you up. You eat that ball up, and he does that well. Again, he pre-scans, and he's looking, and there's no surprises. Again, off the rebound, follows that blocker with his eyes, and he's always set. He's got an ability to get down and back up to his feet really, really quickly. One-timer by Burns, again, top of his crease, blocker makes that save look really, really easy. Again, more traffic is coming up on this play. Good puck movement by Carolina. He stands in a soft stance. That's what they call it when you stand super tall, the stick's not on the ice, and he's able to look over instead of like that play we saw earlier with Skinner where he gets all crouched down low and trying to look through guys' armpits. He stands tall, and he's able to track it really, really well. He's playing bigger than he is physically.
So we can't let you go without giving us your pick. Who wins? How many games, John?
5 games, Florida.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I just think there's something about being the champs and potentially putting Edmonton on their heels and a little nervous because last year you don't know what you're getting into. You go 7, you lose it. This year, you guys have already mentioned it. It's like, guys, we can't let this slip through our fingers once again. You wonder if that makes them a little bit more fragile at times, and Panthers can feast on that.
All right, John, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll probably have you on next week, I guess, when we got a little bit of a sample size here. Thanks for doing this.
Have a good one.
All right, Frank, let's move along. Daily Face-Off inbox question, #AskDFO. Speaking of coaching, Pittsburgh's coaching search?
Yeah, it sounds like it's getting down to the final strokes here. Not official yet, but certainly seems like it's trending toward Dan Muse being the hire. And I think when you look at his resume, I don't know that it necessarily screams, hey, next NHL head coach. But if you talk to people behind the scenes and you know a lot about Dan Muse and his path to this point, has 5 years of NHL experience as an assistant, an incredibly sharp, detailed guy who is a worker and a grinder, had spent a long time in the U.S. National Development Program, had coached on the world stage at the under 18 level, and someone that has seen and done a lot of different things. Was a college hockey player himself, coached at Yale for a while. It's just interesting to see the Pittsburgh Penguins go down this path. Yes, they need to do things a little bit differently and challenge the status quo, but we've also seen some really interesting rookie head coaches sort of tossed in with Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, and hasn't always necessarily worked out that well. So let's see what happens.
Just 42 years old. He's pretty close in age to Sidney Crosby. All right, let's move along. Daily Bets brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup Final? At Bet365, they got you. Game props, player props, totals, and money line. Download the app and get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I got 2 tonight. Leon Draisaitl went all 7 games last year without scoring a goal. I think home ice and Draisaitl powered the Edmonton Oilers tonight. A dry goal, Oilers money line plus 210. If you want something that's just on the shot prop side, Sam Bennett hit his shot prop in 3 of 5 games. I think he's just going to be buzzing out of the gates tonight. He's been great early on in series, so I think he'll hit this. And Corey Perry, 2 shots on goal. He's done it in back-to-back games on Connor McDavid's wing in the top power play unit. Those 2 together is plus 210 as well.
All right, so do me a favor. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
On Bet365, is there a line for whether or not there's a fight in this game?
Oh, I don't think so.
But it's the Stanley Cup Final. You might be able to find one.
Why, you think we maybe see a tilt?
I do, and I think we see one in the first period.
A tilt in the first period. Well, then for our friends at Hockey Fights.
That's my bold prediction.
For our friends at Hockey Fights, can I prod you to go deeper? Who's dropping them?
Trent Frederick.
Ooh, Trent Frederick and Matt Tkachuk. They're both St. Louis boys. They've had some run-ins in their in their careers. All right, let's wrap up the show, Frank. A little bit of garbage time. Always want to give some love to our friend Paul Paduti, who writes some great stuff over at dailyfaceoff.com when it comes to Hall of Fame chances and things like that. do Rats get into the Hall of Fame? Marchand and Corey Perry. It's a great look. We'll put the link in our YouTube chat so people can give it a read after. What do you make of their Hall of Fame chances? And also, Corey Perry yesterday at Media Day being like, swan song, retirement? No. I'm back next year.
Yeah, not surprised. Corey Perry is addicted to the game. You're going to have to drag him out kicking and screaming. And I mentioned last week that he was planning to come back for another season. He's a gamer, and it's super productive. We see it not just in these playoffs, but 19 goals this year. Are you kidding? What a value contract that was. He'd love to be back in Edmonton. He's waiting for the Oilers to give him another deal. But as we've seen in years past, unafraid to take his talents elsewhere. And Brad Marchand, he's turned himself into a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Really. He has.
Yeah, again, great insight from Paduti. Links in our YouTube chat if you want to give that a read. Big shout out to John Goins, our producer, Pat Puff. Everybody in the YouTube, enjoy Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. Hey, look at that. Half an hour flew by. We're only 7.5 hours away now. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be right back here at noon Eastern tomorrow to break it all down.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.